Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts. This humble show is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the globe, yours truly included, and all in one place. Download Podcast Republic now, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. Galen of Pergamon, born in 129 CE in the thriving city of Pergamon, in what is now modern-day Turkey, occupies a singular position in the annals of medical history. His life and work bridged the classical Greek medical tradition with the practical demands of Roman society, creating a corpus of knowledge that would dominate Western and Islamic medicine for over a millennium. Pergamon, a city renowned for its intellectual and cultural vibrancy, including its famed Asclepion, a sanctuary to the god of healing, provided the young Galen with a fertile environment for scholarly and medical pursuits. His father, a deeply religious man, initially sought to channel his son's prodigy intellect toward philosophy, but Galen's early fascination with anatomy, physiology, and the natural sciences proved just too irresistible. From adolescence, he demonstrated a voracious appetite for knowledge, studying the works of Hippocrates, Aristotle, and the Stoic and Platonic philosophers, integrating their theories of natural causes, ethics, and observation into his own developing medical philosophy. Here is the rest of that story.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Galen's early education in Pergamon exposed him to the prevailing medical traditions of the day, particularly the Hippocratic approach emphasizing humoral theory, in which health was understood as the equilibrium of four bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Yet Galen was not content to merely absorb inherent wisdom. He sought empirical verification through rigorous observation and experiment, establishing himself as both a theorist and a practitioner. By the age of 16, he was already performing studies on animals, a practice that would later distinguish him as a pioneering figure in experimental medicine. His early writings suggest a profound interest in the interplay between structure and function, foreshadowing the systematic approach that would characterize his later medical beliefs. Despite the constraints of Roman society, where a dissection of human cadavers was actually largely prohibited, Galen employed comparative anatomy, dissecting pigs, monkeys, and other animals to extrapolate the workings of the human body, a method both innovative and controversial even at its time. Galen's career trajectory gained momentum when he traveled to Smyrna, Corinth, and ultimately Alexandria, the latter of which was the epicenter of all anatomical and medical learning in the Roman world. Alexandria's medical schools, building on centuries of Greek and Egyptian knowledge, afforded Galen unparalleled access to surgical techniques, anatomical texts, and advanced theories of physiology. While in Alexandria, he encountered the prominent medical schools that divided along competing philosophies, such as the rationalists, who emphasized theory and reason, and the empiricalists, who privileged observation and practical experience. Galen's genius lay in his ability to synthesize both of these approaches, combining rigorous theoretical frameworks with meticulous empirical investigation. He refined surgical techniques, explored pharmacology with precision, and engaged in detailed studies of the cardiovascular, nervous, and respiratory systems, producing observations that would influence medical understanding not just for years, but for centuries. His time in Alexandria also exposed him to the limitations of purely animal-based dissection. compelling him to refine his hypotheses with careful attention to observe symptoms and treatments in human patients. Galen's return to Asia Minor and subsequent work in Pergamon as a physician to gladiators at the local amphitheater further cemented his reputation. The gladiatorial arena, with its constant influx of traumatic injuries, offered Galen a unique laboratory for applied medicine, demanding quick interventions and innovative surgical techniques. He meticulously recorded the results of his treatments, noting patterns in wounds, hemorrhage, and disease progression. The gladiator's injuries allowed him to investigate the effects of cauterization and bone setting, producing practical manuals that blended clinical precision with theoretical insight. These experiences reinforced his belief in the interdependence of structure and function, prompting him to argue that the physician's role encompassed both understanding the body's mechanisms and applying interventions to restore balance and health. It was during this period that Galen formulated some of his most enduring anatomical and physiological theories, including his observation on the brain as the center of sensation and the nerves as conduits for motor and sensory function, challenging some of the prevailing cardiac-centered models inherited from earlier Greek thought. By 162 CE, Galen's renown had drawn the attention of Roman elite, culminating in his appointment to the court of Emperor Marcus Aurelius as his personal physician. This role not only granted him unparalleled access to political and intellectual circles, but really provided a platform from which he could disseminate his medical doctrines to a much broader audience. In Rome, Galen became both a teacher and an author, composing a vast array of texts covering anatomy, physiology, pathology, pharmacology, and ethics, alongside treatises on hygiene. His writings were distinguished by meticulous observation, systematic classification, and rhetorical style designed to persuade skeptics of the correctness of his conclusions. While his reliance on animal dissection sometimes introduced inaccuracies, the comprehensiveness and coherence of his system, combined with authority as a court physician, secured his enduring influence. Galen's theories on pneuma or vital spirits and the functional interrelations of organs became the cornerstone of Roman medical practice and were later codified throughout the Byzantine and Islamic worlds. He developed a sophisticated diagnostic methodology, combining careful patient observation, pulse examination, and consideration of environmental and lifestyle factors. Galen argued that disease was a manifestation of imbalance within the body's natural systems, and that treatment should aim to restore equilibrium within those systems through diet, exercise, bloodletting, pharmaceutical remedies, and surgical intervention when necessary. His pharmaceutical experiments, in particular, demonstrated an empirical rigor that anticipated modern clinical practice. He cataloged hundreds of medical compounds, classifying them by their effects, dosages, and combinations, producing reference works that would dominate medical curriculums for more than 1,000 years. Galen's insistence on detailed documentation and case study methodology established standards of medical scholarship that underpinned not only Roman medicine, but also medieval European and Islamic medical education. Now, of course, there's got to be some controversy. Namely, his anatomical findings, while extensive, were occasionally, or perhaps even more than occasionally, flawed due to the limitations of animal-based dissection, leading to persistent misconceptions, such as, for example, the belief in the interventricular pores of the heart and the concept of a single central arterial system carrying blood from the heart to the body. Yet his authority, derived from both his prolific writings and his esteemed position in Rome, rendered dissent kind of difficult. Galenic medicine became virtually unopposed, codified in medical textbooks and training manuals from late antiquity through the Renaissance. Even when later pioneers, including Vesalius in the 16th century, identified inaccuracies in Galen's descriptions, the framework that he provided, meaning systematic observation, detailed categorization, and philosophical underpinning for medical practice, they still remained foundational. Beyond medicine, Galen wrote extensively on the moral responsibilities of physicians themselves, emphasizing temperance, humility, and the intellectual cultivation necessary for effective practice. His philosophical writings explored the relationship between the body and the soul, aligning medical practice with the broader ethical and metaphysical concerns of Roman intellectual culture. Galen argued that understanding the body was inseparable from understanding human nature, and that the physician's role encompassed moral judgments as well as technical skill. His texts, thus, served as both practical manuals for treatment, but really also as philosophy meditations on the nature of life, disease, and well-being, reinforcing the cultural authority of medicine as a discipline of rational inquiry and moral responsibility. Galen's death around 216 CE did very little to diminish his influence. His corpus, encompassing over 500 writings, became the standard reference for medical instruction, shaping curricula in Byzantine, Islamic, and eventually European universities. The endurance of Galen's medicine was both a testament to his intellectual rigor and a reflection of the sociocultural conditions of pre-modern medicine, in which the authority of classical texts outweighed empirical revision. Hopefully today's episode has inspired you to seek out and learn more about this subject. For answers to questions, sources for today's episode, to leave a comment, or check out upcoming guest announcements, visit www.historyshortspodcast.com or look for History Shorts Podcast on Facebook and X. Stay curious, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.